Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Conversation of Our Generation, where we are solving the problems of today with the wisdom of the past. My name is Nick Jamel, and today we will be reviewing The State of the Nullification Movement, a book that's put out by the 10th Amendment Center recently, and has a lot of good, interesting insights into what nullification is and where some of the battles are between states and the federal government. Some serious legal battles that I think are very interesting. Things like, for instance, civil asset forfeiture, marijuana legalization, food freedom, and like questions of like the raw milk and what you can grow and sell if you are making your own food at your house, surveillance, money, and a couple others. And then also a little bit of a background too on what nullification is and why it's important, and the groundwork constitutionally for it as well. So there's a lot packed into this book. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit of why I think it's an important book for us to check out and an important book for us to read. But first, I want to remind you to check out the Conversation of Our Generation at conversationofourgeneration.com. If you're interested in being able to watch more of the interviews, I just did one with Stained Glass Zealot and released that this week. It's got beautiful stained glass images the entire time you're listening to the conversation. If you want to watch that video, you can go to the website and subscribe, and once you do that, you can watch all of the all of the interviews that I do from here on out. So definitely check that out. You can always go and subscribe on YouTube as well to see clips and be able to share small clips as well. Definitely check out the YouTube channel. Just search Conversation of Our Generation and hit subscribe there. Twitter at @ConOfOurGen. You can find me. Lots of great stuff. Lots of great conversations happening there as well. And so definitely check out all of those places. And if you're interested in the books that I review, definitely go to the website and buy them through the links, or just go to the conversationofourgeneration.com/Amazon affiliate, and what you'll find there, or just search Amazon affiliate and you click that link there and buy whatever you need to buy on Amazon. That helps me out and gives me a little bit of a kickback whenever you do that. So definitely check that out as well. And with that, let's hop into our quote of the week. And this one is a good one, I think, because it's Tom Woods. I think they had him as Thomas Woods on Brainy Quote, but it's about nullification today, or from being put into modern words. So what he says is, nullification is the Jeffersonian idea that the states of the American Union must judge the constitutionality of the acts of their agent, the federal government, since no impartial arbiter between them exists. And so that's the basis for what this is all about, is that nullification is the ability of states through the 10th Amendment. So constitutionally, they are given this power to claim whatever was not expressly given to the federal government. And so what that means is that, and I guess I don't want to dive in too much here, but because I do have an episode that you can check out called Nullify, where I talk a little bit more about this. But nullification is basically that states are able to not give resources to the federal government to execute federal law, or, for instance, with the slave acts, the fugitive slave acts rather, the northern states did not use local law enforcement to help enforce and the fugitive slave laws and catch the slaves that were escaping. And so by not complying, they basically made that law null and void in their territory, or in their area. And so that's basically what nullification is all about. And the nullification movement is something that has been pushed out by the 10th Amendment Center and others concerned with limiting federal government. Basically, the goal is to help states reclaim their sovereignty, and instead of letting the federal government hand down these dictates at will that we've seen happen over the last 100 years. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson were really laying the groundwork for the ability for the federal government to expand its power rapidly, even Abraham Lincoln too. So we've seen rapid federal government expansion, especially over the last 100 years, and these people are pushing back against it. And so if you want to learn about nullification, I do recommend you check out the 10th Amendment Center. They are doing great work. I'm a card-carrying member of the 10th Amendment Center, and so I think that they're doing just great work. they are an organization that's really helping forward the pursuit of liberty. And basically, if you check them out on Twitter, they also have a couple of people. Michael Bolden is I think he's their founder. I'm pretty sure he's their president. He is on Twitter as well. I think it's just at Michael Bolden, if I'm not mistaken. But you following him, checking them out, go to the 10th Amendment Center. I want to make sure that it's .org.com, 10th Amendment Center.com, and you will find a lot more stuff there, or you can follow them on Twitter at 10th Amendment. And that'll give you a little bit more context to the book and what it's about. But I think their work is just really worth supporting because we need organizations out there that are lobbying to bring back more localized government, and they are doing that very, very well. And so definitely check out what they're doing and support them if you're interested in it. But the nullification movement broadly is, like I said, aiming to bring power back to the states. And why do we need to do that? Well, like I said, this is all about the 10th Amendment, and the 10th Amendment states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's important to recognize, that the nullification movement is upholding one of our basic rights that's outlined in the Bill of Rights, that whatever is not in the Constitution expressly for the federal government or forbidden to do by the states, which is things like, I would think, printing, minting their own money, some of those things, whatever is not forbidden is then left to the states. And if you look at the amount of federal crimes that we have, you can see that they are violating the 10th Amendment left and right every day. Every day they're probably passing a law or some new executive action or something that violates the 10th Amendment. And that's why we have, I think, this divisiveness, is that we don't have the ability to kind of stay within our state and really deal with people in our state and our city. When you have that, when your political disagreements are over whether or not to put in a bus line in your city or whatever it is, right? Those kinds of things, an infrastructure project in your city, then you have a little bit more charity towards the person next to you. When it's about whether or not California can make Indiana let transgender people walk into their bathrooms, then no, that's not, these big culture fights that we have, these big issues that arise between kind of the coast and the middle of the country wouldn't be nearly as impactful. The federal government wouldn't have the impact and wouldn't stress us out so much if we were really governed by our localities and the federal government was there to protect us from foreign invasion, to regulate some international commerce, if it stuck to the actual enumerated powers and did not overreach, it wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't care who the president is. We wouldn't care who's in the Senate or Congress, because they would just be, as long as they're not passing partisan judges to the circuit courts, then really what's the issue? And I think that's what's so important about this nullification movement, and why I think this book is great. It really explains this problem well, and it explains the basis for why nullification is the proper solution, right? James Madison and Thomas Jefferson are really the two who offer this solution. It was I'm blanking on it, I think the Kentucky-Virginia Compromise, potentially, or something along those lines. Now, I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on this, but it was because of work that they were doing together just after the founding of our country, just after the Constitution was ratified, that we have this idea of nullification. And so it's been passed down for just as long, basically, as the Constitution. It is ingrained into our system, and it is something that we have as a tool at our disposal, as both states and localities and really even as individuals. And so if we are going to reclaim our liberty, reclaim the freedom that we have to actually make real choices in our lives and to fend for ourselves and pursue that American dream, I think this is something that we have to educate ourselves on. And this book, like I said, does it well in a very short amount of time. They have other books that are that are probably not as long as this one, right? That just talk about nullification itself and the basis for it. I have that as well. And I should probably review that soon too. But this one, I think, does a good job of showing it in action. So if you were like, what does this actually look like? Well, you can see some of the things where in the terms of surveillance and in terms of marijuana legalization, or especially in food freedom, I think is a big one, where people are pushing back against the government, but not rebelling, not doing anything crazy. They're just saying, look, I'm not going to enforce these laws. They're ridiculous. They're just unfounded and unconstitutional, and I'm not going to be a party to that. And if we do that, when we do that, I think we will have much more success. So with that, I want to wrap up this episode and just remind you that if you're listening to this and enjoying this, definitely subscribe to this podcast if you're not already, and leave it a good rating and review if you're enjoying it, because that really helps this podcast grow, helps it reach more people, and I really appreciate that. And the more people we get joining the conversation, the more new perspectives. I've been having some incredible conversations on Twitter just because of the way things spread, and I'm finding really new, interesting thinkers out there that are not at your Ben Shapiro level, or right, they're not 1 million followers or anything like that. They're people who are smaller accounts who have a really unique set of ideas and are engaging in building the culture at the ground level, right, with their locality, with the people around them. And I think that that's what's really important here. And so share this podcast, definitely get this out there, and follow me on Twitter if you're not already, at @ConOfOurGen. Go to conversationforgeneration.com and see what else is out there. If you're interested in this book, buy it through the link that I have below. You can get it on Amazon, or go to the 10th Amendment Center and buy it there. I'm like, this is one where if you can buy it there, I'm not 100% sure, or just talk to them, reach out to them, and I'm sure they'd be willing. If you become a card carrying member, they'd be very happy, I would think, to send you this book. But definitely check that out as well. And thank you for listening to this episode of The Conversation of Our Generation. Let's get the dialogue going. I'll talk to you next time.